Hello, everyone. Welcome to Rockshire Gaming. CMON has posted their new dev diary for DCeased, their new DC Comics Zombicide game that is going to be hitting Kickstarter in a month or two, or whenever they decide to do it. All we know is that it's their next Kickstarter, and so yeah, my estimate, just about a month and a half from now, and I'll kind of go into that here in a little bit why I kind of think that. But we are going to take a look at the first dev diary, kind of overthink things that are presented in it and see what we can glean from it and kind of go from there. So let's go ahead and switch over to the website and see what is what. So this is Dev Diary number 1, Comics to Game, published on September 21st, 2023. I am filming this video on September 24th of 2023. And yeah, a lot of, we on the 21st, we filmed a gameplay of something that will be out next week, hopefully. So I didn't do my coverage that night, and yeah, things have been weird around the house. You don't want to know. Yeah, so we're back in the swing of things now, and we're going to take a look at this. One of the first things I do want to point out immediately from this banner that we have right here is that we got the Batman that is on the promo card that was given out at CMON Expo over the weekend or a couple weekends ago. We've got the Superman here from the trailer, and then we've also got Cyborg here. Cyborg, and we're going to get into spoilers in this video. I'm already going to say it right now for the DCeased comic. Cyborg, unfortunately, is where the anti-life virus does come from. I mean, he gets it from Darkseid on Apocalypse, gets sent back to Earth, and that's basically the catalyst for the virus spreading throughout the planet. So he never becomes victim to it in the, as far as I'm aware, in the first miniseries. I'm only on up to issue 5 in there, and I'm also trying to read all the side content and trying to read it all in order before I do like wish list video or anything like that. But this dev diary came out in the meantime. But that is something that I do want to point out, is that we do have confirmation that Cyborg in some way, and I'm pretty sure this is a living version, Cyborg in some way is in the game. So there is that. So let's go ahead and get into this. City has fallen. The masses have been infected by the anti-life virus. How did we get here? So this article is written by Michael Chenal, the DCeased designer. And today we're going to answer questions. Specifically, we're going to talk about the influences that led to the creation of DCeased, a Zombicide game. Yes, I know it can be easy to look at the title and go, well, the comics, and yes, that is true. All of what you see in the game is based around the iconic comic line, but that is not the only place where inspiration was drawn. So basically what he's talking about there is the fact that a big chunk of the storyline is going to come from DCeased, but there's also going to be other stuff that from other areas of the DC universe that they are going to pull from, more likely because of the fact that a lot of people probably going into this are going to have very little passing knowledge of DC stuff, whereas with Marvel, the MCU is being was taking off up through Endgame and somewhat beyond after that. So a lot of people's passive knowledge on Marvel comes from the MCU, and you can see that with the CMON games published by the games published by CMON, like Marvel United Season 1 and a lot of the stuff in Marvel Zombies, where they basically do focus a lot on Marvel United, or I'm sorry, Marvel MCU themes, like making sure to talk about Hydra, all that stuff, Captain America, Iron Man, throwing in Captain Marvel and everything. The X-Men, even the X-Men characters, a lot of the stuff you see in the X-Men stuff is more stuff from the cartoon. There were some characters that were from outside of the cartoon, but a lot of that is from that. So I do see why they are going to be taking some influences from outside of the main DCeased line, because of the fact that a lot of the public consciousness is not necessarily geared toward the DC and the DC movies, and that kind of thing. So rant over. Some things to get straight right off the bat, and semi-spoilers for those who haven't read DC's comics, but nothing major, I promise. Technically, the zombies in DCeased aren't zombies in the classic sense. No, in this story, everything stems from the universe-wide outbreak of the anti-life virus, which turns those infected into bloodthirsty killers whose sole existence is now based around causing as much death and destruction as possible, but they don't care about eating anyone in regular Marvel Zombies. And yes, I'm going to continue to compare this game to Marvel Zombies because it's two superhero themed games with in the Zombicide um, uh, engine or universe or whatever you want to call it. And again, from the promo card that may or may not have been given at CMON Expo, a lot of the card design is very much from Marvel Zombies. So yes, we are going to be taking a look at possibly Marvel Zombies mechanics that are being brought over into DCeased. This one is talking about eating, and I think this is talking about or might be alluding to the hunger track in regular Marvel Zombies. I don't have it yet. Still waiting for it to show up. November, most likely. But you do have the hunger track, which if you've played Heroes Resistance or watch us to play Heroes Resistance, very similar to the power track in that game. But the in the DCeased storyline so far, from what I have read, no one's eating anybody. Everyone's basically just attacking, clawing, maiming people. Even when the zombies themselves, and they're going to talk about zombies here in a minute in the next paragraph. But when something turns into a zombie, they don't like start like decaying and becoming necrotic. They actually, in most cases, start like clawing at their own flesh. They get that little itch in their brain from the anti-life equation, and they start clawing at themselves. And that's why all of the people who are being turned into DCeased look like disfigured monsters, because they're essentially, when they turn, are disfiguring themselves. It's very interesting. But no one's eating anybody. So again, in Marvel Zombies, we're eating people, and that's what the mechanics are based on. This makes me wonder, and if they talk about it in another dev diary, if they're going to drop from possible zombie heroes, if they're going to drop the hunger mechanic and introduce a new mechanic to, again, be more in line with the comic source material and to differentiate itself from Marvel Zombies. So we'll get into that here a little bit. What that means is that while the infected do have some control of their powers and abilities, their higher cognitive functions are largely gone, save for an overwhelming urge to kill as much as possible. While infected, it also appears most biological processes and states just stop. So, very zombie-like in that manner, but I did feel the need to make that distinction. So, we have here a picture of Batman and a picture of Superman. And Batman is alive, and this matches the artwork on that promo card. Superman from the trailer is very much dead, missing an arm, got a kryptonite sword over here. He's in the Fortress of Solitude, looking very pissed off. So as we continue, this is just entirely based on the comics run, right? Well, not exactly. While the comics heavily influence everything you're going to see, some 90% I would say, we're not entirely limiting ourselves to just that medium. One major change that readers, fans will notice immediately is that in our core box, we still have a living Batman and infected Superman, which is essentially the opposite of what happens in the story. Yes, again, spoilers. Batman basically is done partway through issue 2. He gets bitten, I think, at the end of issue 1. That was the big thing. I think he gets bitten by Nightwing and or Tim Drake Robin. But he is essentially turned by midway through issue 2. He gets a suit, one of Mr. Freeze's suits that he just happened to have, to help him survive long enough to send marching orders to the Justice League. But yeah, he is not Batmaning in that comic. Superman survives most of the series before this happens to him, and this part here, from my understanding, is very accurate to the story. So but yeah, so that is going to be a major change to how they did things, and the fact that they talk about the fact that Batman is living. Actually, let's go ahead and, before I say what I was going to say, let's go ahead and get into that. The reasoning for this kind of plays back into what I mentioned above. When someone is infected, they typically lose most cognitive functions. I just did. This means zombie Batman is really just a super fit zombie, but everything that makes him Batman is gone. This is just one example, though. The primary point is that throughout the entire design process, while DCeased created the base and foundation for the entire project, we did not limit ourselves to just that run. If you go back and look at Marvel Zombies, Spider-Man was living in both iterations of the game. There's the regular version in the core box, the Heroes Resistance version, so it's three, and the Artist box. All three of them depict Spider-Man as living, where he was undead the entire time in the original Marvel Zombies book. So there is that. Also, the fact that they talk about the fact that people lose all their cognitive functions is kind of another thing I want to talk about. Why they're making such a big deal about Batman being alive in this game, and the fact that people lose cognitive functions when they turn. In Marvel Zombies, the entire focus is on the undead, the unliving, whatever you want to call them, but zombie heroes. So they hold different meanings. They um, discuss different things. They like Spider-Man keeps crying over the fact that he killed Mary Jane and Aunt May, but they're basically um, all interacting as though they're just like disfigured and super hungry all the time for human flesh. Even Ant-Man at one point, again talking about characters who didn't turn, the zombie version of Ant-Man, I think, was using Black Panther um, as like a charcuterie board, essentially keeping him alive, but allowing so that way Ant-Man could continue his experimentation with by using Black Panther to um, clear the hunger out of his head by just snacking little bits of him. The original origin of the Marvel Zombies, not virus, but the Marvel Zombies storyline, I believe, comes from Ultimate Fantastic Four, where the zombie version of Reed Richards tricks Ultimate Reed Richards into opening up the gateway to go over to the zombie universe. So again, the zombies kept their intelligence in Marvel Zombies. In DCeased, they do not at all keep their intelligence in that storyline, which is a long way of saying and making me wonder if they are, and we'll go with another thing down here that also makes me think this, but I wonder if they are dropping the play as the zombie aspect of the game and just sticking with the play as the living aspect of the game. Um, they could still do, if they were going to do that, they could still do um, uh, characters who are essentially doubled, meaning that you could still essentially come out with a Batman who's undead, but he is just or not undead, anti-living, but he is just anti-living. That's the only function he has. He doesn't have a way to play him. Superman, you could always again come out with a stretch goal where he has a living version of himself, or even putting in a expansion with um, the other members of the Superman family kind of thing. They could always do that. Still feel like I still feel like with even like changing the hunger mechanic, they're still going to do where you can play as living and play as undead. But we'll see. I know I'm kind of like, again, I said as soon as we started this, I'm going to read way too much into this, and we're not going to know anything until they start again putting out more dev diaries, saying that they're making changes, or we actually see the actual campaign come out and can see what changes are coming out. But some of these things make me wonder. Again, are we going to drop the playing as the zombie heroes, and or are we going to drop the hunger mechanic and put in different mechanisms, or just call it a different thing to make it distinct from Marvel Zombies? Let's go ahead and look further. Even when looking at the core box, you will see little Easter eggs and inclusions that, while not present in the DC's comics, are still iconic to the greater DC mythos as a whole. Inclusions such as major and minor supporting Superman characters that did not directly feature in the DCeased run, such as Bibbo Babowski, Dan Turbin, and Mercy Graves, all make appearances. Bibbo, I believe, was a shipboat captain in Metropolis Harbor. Dan Turbin is a uh, Metropolis PD cop, and Mercy Graves, of course, is the bodyguard of Lex Luthor. So again, these three characters, because I can't see making me play as Dan Turbin, or Bibbo, maybe Mercy, I don't know, but none of these three characters, I don't want to play as Bibbo or Dan Turbin if it means I don't get like Kyle Rayner or Wally West, or anything like that. These are, I'm assuming, going to be the bystander characters. He doesn't say directly in here that these are bystanders, but they do talk about these are characters that will be in the game. Again, hoping we're not drifting too far away from Marvel Zombies and that basically engine that they created for that. So I have to assume these are bystander characters. And you will find a plethora of unique items and equipment throughout the game, such as LexCorp energy blasters, LexCorp personal force fields, LexCorp energy blades. Notice a theme. Yes, there's a bunch of LexCorp stuff in there. Most likely there's going to be either. No, this is Corp Box. I was going to say there's going to be a LexCorp building that you can go into of some sort somewhere in there. That'll be obvious. LexCorp energy blasters, all that stuff. The fact that they're bringing back equipment, so Marvel Zombies has traits, and the bystanders, you rescue the bystanders, you get a buff. You do a heroic, call upon a heroic trait or a zombie trait, gives you a temporary ability that you can use as a one-time thing. This makes me wonder, are we going to get on top of those things? Because we've seen a Batman card that shows traits, or mentions traits, I believe, in there. I have to go back and double check. I believe the Batman card does mention traits on there. So yes, and essentially spoilers for whatever this card is. I'm not going to read it, but it's the orange ability that this card is showing, and it mentions drawing one heroic trait in it. So we're still going to get heroic trait cards. It looks like, I imagine we're still getting the bystanders, so it looks like we're getting an extra thing with items and equipment. Makes me more wonder if they're going to incorporate it like Multiverse is going to be incorporating it, where it's standard in the Multiverse Inspired Geddon boxes, but it's going to be an add-on in the stretch goals to go toward season 1, season 2 of United. But yeah, it looks like we are getting back items and equipment from regular Zombicide, possibly on top of traits and bystanders. That's going to be interesting at how those two systems are going to interact, if they are keeping all three essentially, but we'll see that. Let's see, next paragraph, and that's another important point of view theme. We want every aspect of the project to bleed the entirety of the DC universe. So even if you are just a casual fan, you will have those little moments of, oh, hey, I recognize that, or see something that, while not directly taken from the DCeased comics run, feels right at home within the setting. So I wonder if they are going to incorporate aspects from, or try to incorporate aspects from the DC movies, the recent movies, if they're going to try to incorporate aspects from the Arrowverse. I don't think so with that. I think this is more hopefully alluding to introducing characters and concepts from the greater DC comics that may not have made it into the DC storyline. Trying to think of something right now. I know Wally West wasn't in much. I think he was in like at least in the first mini. I didn't read the second and third mini yet, but at least in the first mini, I think he got it was like a one-off thing where you kind of go in and show him going into the Speed Force with a lot of the other speedsters, stuff like that. So again, not having read through the entirety, I can't really pinpoint something that would be that they could be alluding to, but I'm hoping that it just sticks more with the comics side of it, little Easter eggs and stuff like that, not necessarily incorporating television or movie stuff. But we'll see how they do that. Let's see. It was important to take all these aspects and blend them together with the iconic Zombicide feel to craft something that seemed familiar to both fans of Zombicide as well as DCeased, but still allowed for a degree of uniqueness, taking a blend of the two and creating something that enhances both in a complete and memorable comic and gaming experience. DCeased Zombicide Game is coming soon to Kickstarter. Sign up to be notified. Here's a hyperlink right there. If you're on the page to get to the Kickstarter page, you can hit the notify on there. As long as you have a Kickstarter account, you'll be notified that the game is coming out. Also, hit the bell down over there, so that way you can be notified when I'm going to put out a video. But yeah, that is it for the actual Dev Diary #1 update. So again, lots of things to look in there. Again, might just be me over analyzing things, and in the next video I do, if we get any more information from a Dev Diary, we'll see if any of my craziness pans out, but who knows. So with that said, what are we looking at for the future? I have no idea what is coming out for DCeased whatsoever. I am not affiliated with CMON whatsoever. I'm not affiliated with any games. I just do these little videos for my own amazement, amusement, and all the other things. But if again comparing it to Marvel Zombies originally, I believe, was January 6th of 2021 is when they put out their first dev diary, and it was uh, January 17th of the following year when they put out the fifth dev diary the day before Marvel Zombies officially launched. So going by that guesstimate, which has no scientific basis whatsoever, Mara DCeased might be coming out in a month and a half. So we'll see how that actually shakes out. Don't know if we're going to get any more dev diaries. It'd be cool if they did to kind of explain some of these things that are alluded to throughout the article. Again, are we getting bystanders? Are we getting traits still? Are we getting? I mean, we're possibly getting equipment, and is equipment being added onto or replacing one of the other two aspects? So that's going to be interesting. Are we getting to play as the zombies again? Are we going to be playing as the living again? I didn't even think about that, but we might just be no, because we've possibly seen a Batman living card that you play as. So all these questions, it's all interesting. So we'll see how that goes. DC does have to, if they're going to do anywhere near Marvel, they do have to fill about 160 characters. So yeah, looking back to Marvel Zombies, because again, that's what we're compared to. There's about 90 or so different characters in the game, most of which have a living version. There's about a difference of 18 or so characters that didn't have an undead version, not counting the 40 something bystanders that we're also getting, so, or that we also got. So it'd be interesting to see how that all breaks down. If we are only getting a living version, that's definitely going to be, because I can't think of 100 characters that in the that are so far in DCeased. Maybe if you throw in all the add-ons, but yeah. So that is it for this dev diary entry. If they do come out with more dev diaries prior to the campaign starting, we will definitely do coverage and look at those. The way I usually do the Kickstarter coverage on the channel is I usually do a video very late at night when the campaign goes live, so that way I can see almost everything that was unlocked in that first. Usually they do, what is it? Usually they launch at 3 o'clock in the afternoon Eastern time, so that way I can see before midnight everything that was done in that first 8 to 9 hours of the day, and make sure to basically report on it and talk about it and see what's kind of predict what's going on. So I usually do one of those videos on day one, and then after that, anytime a major expansion, not like a little tiny thing, but anytime a major expansion is announced, we also do a video on here for that. I am going to, before then, try to do, hopefully after one or two more dev diaries come out, but I definitely want to do a wish list kind of thing. So kind of guessing what other expansions I feel like they're going to have, if there's any like major characters that I think they're going to be talking about those. I still do not want a Galactus style character in this. I'm afraid it's going to happen, and it's going to be one of those like FOMO things where I'm going to want to do it, and I'm not gonna. Because again, with Galactus, I didn't buy Galactus, but I sometimes wish I had that $200 monstrosity, and then I remember it was $200. But yeah, so I definitely want to do a video on that prior to the campaign going live. I'm trying to work on, because I do have like spreadsheets comparing with other Zombicide games. I had a spreadsheet comparing White Death to Black Plague and Green Horde when we did the Marvel United multiverse videos. I had a spreadsheet with all the comparisons from season 1 and season 2 of those games. So we're gonna do the same thing here, comparing where things landed between this and comparing, and we're definitely gonna be comparing this to Marvel Zombies, just so everyone knows, because it's the other zombie superhero game. So there's that. But I'm gonna quit rambling here. I have been talking for at least 27 minutes. Some of it's gonna be definitely be edited out, edited out. But I like to thank you guys for tuning into this rant. Make sure you guys like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell to know when we're going to be putting out any of these videos that I have talked about. And we'll see you guys in the next one.